Good evening, everybody. I'd like to start the meeting of our Southern Area Planning Committee and obviously to welcome all members of the public, speakers, officers, everybody who's here this evening, and to start by asking for any apologies that have been received.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Driscoll and Owenson.
Thank you very much, Ali. That's very, very helpful. I'd also like to ask members present today if there are any declarations of interest.
Yes, Councillor Mead. I am a neighbour of 41 Geraldine Road as I live at 43, so I'm not able to speak or take part in the debate on that subject.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mead, your interest is noted. Okay, I'd like to move on then to item 3, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. Could I ask if there's a proposer? Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. Anybody prepared to second? Thank you very much, Councillor Bennett. Excellent. Okay. Moving on then to item 4, Chairman's announcements. I'd first of all like to thank our previous chairs. That's my first time in the chair, and after many years of service, your term came to an end, but I know that everybody was very grateful to you and conscious of the brilliant job that you did. So thank you very much, Councillor Wood. I'd also like to introduce the officers in attendance this evening. So we have Kieran Power, our Head of Development Management, Anna Priestley-Clark, our Case Officer, Planning Principal Officer, who will be presenting on the cases before us today, Chris Lewis-Farley, our Tree and Landscape Officer, Rachel Cherrington-Walker, our Legal Advisor, and Alison Freeman, our Democratic Services Officer. I'd also like you to note that there are update sheets presented as paper copies in front of you, relevant to the cases that we'll be looking at. And I'd also like to announce that we have switched the order today that we will be looking at these cases. So the first case we'll be looking at is Marlbank Inn, and we have got nobody in attendance for this particular case, so I think we can go straight to our case officer. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Chair. This is a full application for the siting of 6 holiday lodges within the extended grounds of the Marlbank Inn in Welland. The site is within the Malvern Hills National Landscape and is currently used for touring, caravans and camping. And the application follows the withdrawal of a previous scheme for 8 larger lodges, which were of 2-storey height. The aerial photograph and location plan identify the site within Welland, which is surrounded by open countryside and with residential properties on the opposite side of the road. The host public house is directly to the west of the application site. The site location and block plan show you the existing area that's to be developed. In addition to the car park and path shown on the plan, there are a number of existing hard-standing strips on the land, which currently support the touring caravan use. The block plan you can see there shows the general arrangement of the proposed lodges, and these are going to utilise the existing hard surfaced areas as far as possible. Just moving on to a little bit more detail, the proposed site plan sets out the detailed layout of the development. You can see that the 6 holiday lodges will be located along the northern boundary of the site. Planting is proposed in and about to demarcate the plots and generally enhance the site. The existing access is proposed to be closed and relocated to further east within the site to provide improved visibility. And it also provides a clear division of the parking area serving the Marlbank Inn and the parking area to serve the lodges. You can see as well in the southwest corner, there's a proposed extended seating area for the public house. These are the submitted elevations, which show a relatively simple approach to the design, with glazing maximised on the southern southern face due to the orientation of the lodges, minimising side windows, which would ensure that lodge to lodge privacy is as far as possible. The height to the roof ridge is shown as 4.3 metres from the base of the slab, and it would be 2.5 metres to the eave, so a relatively standard size for a lodge or holiday home of this nature. Internally, each lodge will have 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and then an open plan kitchen, living and dining area. Also proposed are an entrance building and store. The entrance building is as you come through the hedgeway into the caravan area, the lodge area. This will provide a sort of signing and reception type point for this site, and also a degree of security for the lodges. The bin store and cycle store will also provide necessary storage in association with the lodge use. You can see they're, again, relatively simple and functional in form. They'd be subservient in scale to the existing and proposed buildings within the site, and wouldn't have any particular massing. The proposed landscaping scheme that's been submitted, as you can see, is actually for a previous iteration of the drawing. So it's showing the 7 lodges that were proposed before the scheme was amended down. So there is actually a condition recommended in your officer's report for a new landscaping scheme to be submitted, but it would be generally along the lines of what is in front of us here. It's basically looking to retain trees as far as possible within the site and maximise the existing natural assets, but also incorporates a good amount of new and reinforced planting to help the development blend into its rural surroundings. Turning to the site photographs, these are just 2 photographs from within the car park area, one looking towards the public house and the other looking in a northerly direction through the entrance into the current touring field, camping field. And these are some views of the apologies, there are a couple more views. You can see the proposed relocation access point on the sort of closest left-hand corner, and the slightly raised road level. Following members' site visit yesterday, confirmation has been sought from the Highway Authority that they don't have any concerns with the gradient of the proposed new access given that change in levels. And I can just read you an email response I've had from the Highways officer, which says that there was a slight difference in the highway level noted to the lower car park level. However, the access gradient was not seen as a major concern. The difference in levels is only over a very short length and does not exceed the 1:8 requirement. The access will effectively be a shallow slope into the site. So on that basis, there are no concerns from your officers regarding the gradient of the access, and no additional conditions are recommended at this time. So moving into the site itself, this is the existing camping caravanning area where the lodges will be sited. There's a view from looking from the southern point to north, centrally within the site, and then a view looking east, which is an area that will be retained in the main as green space. There's a couple more views looking to the centre and east. And then looking to the west and within the western portion. You can see there's a couple of strips of hard standing. This is an area where it's proposed to be utilised as an outdoor seating area to serve the lodges for a bit of recreation space. And then finally, This is looking in the opposite direction from north to south through the site, essentially, and then eastward, so back towards the car park and then to the green space. I'll just draw your attention to the update sheet, which provides information that following publication of your officer's report, the applicant has expressed concern with the recommendation to tie the lodges to the public house with the Section 106 agreement. There is a need for some external investment by a third party, as officers understand it, which would be difficult to secure if the lodges were tied to the public house, and consequently, the applicant has asked that the proposals are considered without this tie. As set out within the update sheet, whilst the tying of the lodges to the pub would provide some benefits in ensuring the future viability of the public house, which is a community use, in considering the requirements of policy SWDP 36, it's clear that the proposed lodges would be acceptable in their own right. And furthermore, even if they're not tied to the ownership of the pub, the lodges would still have a positive impact on the viability because holidays are likely to use those facilities. Of concern, however, would be to ensure that if the two uses are ever severed, that they are adequately served by the car parking and access point. And our legal officers have advised us that it's possible for a Section 106 agreement to be drawn up, which would prevent the relevant area of parking for each use being severed from it, and to ensure a right of way over the access. So consequently, your officer's recommendation remains for approval of this application subject to the conditions which are set out in your officer's report, but this is now subject to the completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure parking and access arrangements, and for the authority to be delegated to the Director of Planning and Infrastructure to agree the final wording of that Section 106 agreement, and to make any minor amendments and additions to the planning conditions if they become necessary to that end. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Anna. So we don't have any representations from either objectors or agent or parish council, so I'd like to come to the ward members, which are due in alphabetical order. So I'd like to come to Councillor Gallagher first, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Anna, for the report. Quite comprehensive. I think my initial reaction to this was it seemed reasonable, but I'm not having read through all the documentation and thought about it. I think there's a number of issues in my mind that I want to sort of explore a little bit. On the face of it, there was quite a lot of comment made about the access issues. At the speed of cars coming down and the point of access coming out onto a bank onto the road, and I wondered why that was actually why wasn't it possible just to use the existing car park entrance, which doesn't have any of those drawbacks and has been used for entry onto the road. So it seems that bit of it seems a bit odd to me, that you would actually then go to all the bother of having that access cut up onto the bank, onto the road. So that was one point. The other comments are that trying to manage, we've got biodiversity issues to manage, and I'm not clear from the report how they are proposed to be managed. There's new trees, various things like field maple, spindle, hazel, and so on. Some, I presume, since I didn't do the full tour yesterday, I presume some of those are already in place. So there'll be some planting. The way it's written is all these would be new plantings. So I'm not clear in terms of the biodiversity, what's actually been proposed here. On the face of it, I thought also that it was a good idea that the Marlbank Inn and its grounds, the whole thing is attached within. So you have this, these chalets, these holiday chalets put together as part of the whole Marlbank thing. And so today's request, or the update coming in from today, to actually separate those out and to make it independent from the public house has just caused me a little bit of concern, because I think to me the business case is it would be quite good to keep the whole thing as a unit, but then to diversify out or to divert out one element from the other. I'm a bit concerned about what the real impact of that is, and really I haven't had much time to think about it since it's only come in late this afternoon, or I read it only late this afternoon. So I've got various doubts about it, and I would like to hear what other members think, those who visited and those who have read through the documentation. There have been a number of objectors in the past. There's been a lot of debate about it, and it's certainly not clear in my mind as to which way I think I would actually go when it comes to the vote on this, but I'll wait to hear.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Wilde, would you like to come in?
Chair, thank you. I'd like to thank Anna for the site visit yesterday because it made a lot of things very clear for us, and I'm sorry Councillor Gallagher didn't catch those. I'm very satisfied with this, but I'm going to reserve the right to speak later and listen to what the panel has to say. I'd like to thank Councillor Mick Davis, who's sitting here, for coming yesterday, because he clarified things on behalf of the parish council, and I think so a lot of the questions that we had were answered by him. And I'd like to thank Anna for following up on the highways question, because we were all baffled by that during the site visit, and I'm happy with your response. So thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Wilde, and I'd like to echo your thanks for the site visit as well yesterday, which was enlightening, and also we were a little bit ahead of schedule, so I think it was perhaps our being ahead of schedule rather than Councillor Gallagher being late or anything of that nature. So I'd like to open it up to members for comment and debate. Councillor Bennett.
This is very, very close to the hill. This is in the AONB, now National Landscape Area. Unless there is a really, really pressing need, there should be no development this close with such important landscapes to preserve. And I'm afraid I'm unconvinced about that. I really think the views from the hills, which have not been shown, show that this would be a blot on the landscape, and those are things which are planning considerations. Also, I'm horrified at the views shown on the slides, which do not show the proximity of the hills to councillors properly. The fact that there is no new landscape plan is just totally bewildering to me, because this should not have come to committee without a proper landscape plan, as far as I'm concerned. I am absolutely appalled that the objections from the National Landscape Authority, Partnership, have not been taken into consideration in this recommendation. We should definitely refuse this on that basis alone.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. I will come to you, if I may, Councillor Palmer, in a minute, but I'm just also conscious, Anna, if you might like to answer Councillor Gallagher's 3 questions and also perhaps deal with Councillor Bennett's comments, and then I'll come to Councillor Palmer. You're okay with that?
Just firstly, in terms of the new access point, that wasn't, as I understand it, a requirement that came from planning officers or any pre-application discussions. However, the existing access is tight and slightly difficult to manoeuvre. There's also better visibility at the new point of access. So that it's been done partly for improvement to the visibility because of the speeds on the road, and partly to create what is a slightly more cohesive layout of the site and to provide that opportunity for the seating area to the public house, which is now going to be over where the existing access is. There's no hedgerow or anything that would be lost on that access, which is often something that we would be concerned with when you're creating new access. So there's no real environmental impact insofar as that we're going to lose any particular features in the street scene as a result of that access, and it, as I say, it will improve visibility. So no concerns were raised by highways officers, and it was not a point of concern. With regard to biodiversity issues, I understand that maybe further clarity is needed on what is going to go where in the site, but that's all dealt with via the conditions. There's quite a comprehensive list of conditions. In part, the reason why a lot of the detail of the landscaping and so forth is being left to that conditional stage is due to the biodiversity net gain requirement that's coming, because that's going to mean that these developments are all going to need a biodiversity net gain plan submitted after planning permission is granted, and it's important that whatever comes in for that aligns with the landscaping scheme. So apologies, I'm addressing both of yours and Councillor Bennett's comments in part. So it's sort of reasonable to have a general idea on the plans of how landscaping might appear and how green spaces might be laid out, but that very detailed specifics we are recommending the conditions to deal with and the ongoing maintenance in those conditions. Finally, with regard to the independent use of the holiday site from the public house, what's being proposed or what's being requested by the applicant is simply not for them to be tied together by ownership. So it does mean that they could be sold off separately. I don't get the impression that that is the current intention. However, that could be done at any time if permission is granted. I can only reiterate what I've said in the update sheet, that if we were looking at this as a standalone proposal, it would meet with the policy requirements, and therefore we'd have to think very carefully, I guess, about what reason we would give for resisting it. It is desirable, as you say, to have that connection with the pub to secure the long-term viability, but as I said in the update sheet, there will be some of that benefit anyway, just simply by the lodges being there, and that's close proximity to that business. So that's just for yourselves to consider it, how important that tie would be.
Thank you, Anna. Councillor Palmer.
Yes, can I ask Anna again about that agreement? Why do they not want the pub and the lodges connected? Because this has always been a pub with land at the back for touring caravans and tents, and that needs some sorting really when you've got people coming and going. Are we sure that if we separate the two, that they won't become holiday cottages, that they'll just be used as people to live in long term?
Anna, did you want to refer to the register, Anna?
Yeah, if you look at that condition quickly. In terms of sort of future use of the sites, the reason we were comfortable potentially with the separation is, like Anna said, if it came in separate, we would probably find it difficulty to resist the principle of this development in this location. In order for it, if it changed to open unrestricted housing, if you like, then it would require planning permission to remove some conditions that we've imposed. So we've got a condition that limits it for occupation for the purposes not to be occupied as sole residence, the standard restrictive condition from that perspective, and also one that requires a name, an up-to-date register of occupiers, which enables us to monitor that. If we have any concerns, we can request at any point. That's the standard approach that's taken, and sort of inspectors accept is robust. It's as robust as we're able to put on. Ultimately, if any of the change use came in, it and for open market dwellings or someone using it as a sole residence, then we'd have the ability potentially to enforce that through enforcement powers. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Kieran. Any other comments from members? I've got Councillor Victory at the front. Councillor Allen, I'll come to you. Yeah, Councillor Victory first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that on the visit yesterday, I made a point of going to the southernmost part of the patch and looking back towards the hills, and the hills were invisible, and therefore, if you can't see them, they can't see you. So, Councillor Bennett's point about the visual aspect of the hills is irrelevant because they are screened throughout the site. I had a reservation about the difference in height between the roadway and the car park, but my fears have been allayed by the reports that we've had back. So that's really all I have to say. I think it's very important, as the local parish council said, to keep the pub viable, and this will enable that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Victory. Councillor Bennett, before I come to you, can I go to Councillor Allen, because he was ahead of you and I'm conscious of you wanting to come in.
I'm quite happy for him to have his right to reply first,
Right.
Chair.
Oh, thank you.
Can we just go back a couple of slides on that? Because there was a clear view to the west, which shows that the hills are visible. And besides, you see, those back one, no, you just went past it. There, those are the hills, believe it or not. So please don't put words into my mouth, and please don't give the impression that I'm not telling the truth. Also, I was actually talking about views from the hills, Councillor Victory, as well. Thank you.
Where is the hill on that photograph?
That's the wooded bit behind.
No, you're miles out.
Which direction is that?
Councillor Allen, do you want to come back in, actually?
Yes, sorry,
All right,
sorry, okay, but if I just asked, because do we know what direction looking towards this, what Councillor Bennett has said is the hills, is it actually looking in that direction on the point on the compass? Is it looking west? Okay, right, that's all right, thank you. Okay, that sort of cleared up that for me. So again, could I thank the officers? Could we just go back to the actual units, please, to have a look at them? Okay, so that's the bit that now looking at that again and thinking about it. So the bedrooms are going to be to the rear, aren't they? With no windows and no fire escape. There's maybe one window, but you're saying it's 2 bedrooms. So at least one bedroom hasn't got a window. How do you get out if there's a fire? Is that definitely where the two
Anna, would you
bedrooms
just like to explain how it works?
If you just look at the rear and side elevations, so the third elevation down is the rear elevation, and there's a window to one of the bedrooms there. And then on the first of the side elevations, there's a window there as well. So they will have windows serving each bedrooms. If I move back a slide, that's probably going to be an easier way to see. No. Yeah, it is on there. So if I try my best, there's basically, it's hard to show on here, but there's a window on each side here and a window on each side there. Oh yeah, and a door on the side. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. That's clear that up for me. I understand what Highways has said about the drop, but it is a big drop, and I do wonder if things will have to be modified when they actually come to the construction. I accept that it may well be that it can be visible from the hills. I have to admit I haven't climbed up the hills to have a look, but I'll accept that it could be. Is there a condition if we allow it to stop extra tents, caravans and camper vans, etc., so you don't suddenly get a huge amount of people sort of staying there overnight?
Yeah, we have a standard condition recommended, which is condition number 5, which just sets out a limit to the number of lodges. These would have to be under the definition of a caravan, and so then you set out the number of units, so that is limited.
Okay, but that doesn't stop them coming along with a number of tents and putting them up, does it?
I'm just being advised that if we wanted to amend condition 5 to just be clear that that also then excludes tents, touring caravans, any additional units, that would be
That certainly
an
would
easy
be
addition.
helpful if we are going to approve this, because things suddenly can morph quite quickly. And I think we need to be, if we're going to pass this, we need to be quite clear that we don't have problems going forward in the future. I'm concerned that you want to remove the condition of the units not being linked to the pub, and I think that's really rather important. I think without that condition, I would find it very difficult to support this, to be quite honest. I think it's paramount. It is a community use pub. There aren't lots of pubs in the area, which I'm sure quite a lot of locals are very sad about, though they are building one again finally in the centre of the village in Welland. And I'm also wondering that if we refuse it following your application and it went to planning appeal, what would the inspector do? And I think I have to bear that in mind as well, because I'm aware it's the public purse that we're spending. If we think that he or she is definitely going to allow this, that causes a problem. So I'm interested again in hearing what members have to say. I haven't fully made up my mind, but without that condition linking the pub and the units together, I'm probably more minded to say I would be looking to refuse it.
Anna or Kieran, would you like to deal with that?
So we haven't got a policy that requires that.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, I mean, our the officer's approach was to try and tie the two uses together, and that was what we had suggested, obviously, in the initial officer committee reports. Following discussions with the applicants, it was indicated that that was problematic to them for the reasons set out, and so therefore that required us to have a look to see whether we thought actually it was justified in terms of imposing that 106, and members can take a view on that quite rightly. Our view, which we reached, was that if we were to consider it as a standalone, but with its relationship with the pub, that it would still support and provide some economic benefits to it. So it is quite a balanced one, but we still felt that we could support it if it came forward without that tie. We still had the matter in relation to the car parking that needed addressing, and that's where the section 106 would still be required. I think it's trying to, I suppose it's whether you're comfortable, if the fact that it's the viability of the pub is the matter that made it acceptable, and overcame other harms such as the landscaping impacts, etc., then that would be a matter that you could give weight to. There isn't a specific policy that requires these types of uses to be tied to something, but if that's one of the material reasons that tip it to something favourable, that wouldn't be unreasonable. I think where we got to, we thought in terms of the planning balance that it probably would be okay and stand up on its own, and that's where we reached. In terms of the other conditions, there's conditions in relation to materials and trying to mitigate the impacts on landscape. So taking all that into account, including I think we've included sort of roofing, colours, materials, the landscaping aspects of it. I know we require a full details to be submitted, but we've got that secured via condition, and also the BNG elements that those taken together meant that it was acceptable. I think the highway point has been discussed as well, and again we followed that up in terms of the statutory consultee, and they're comfortable, and we do think there's some betterment as a result of the highway improvements as well. So I think that's something that would weigh in favour of the development in the balance, but obviously it's for members to weigh those factors up.
I've just noticed 3 questions, and I'm not sure I've got them in the right order, but I'm going to go to Councillor Wilde, then Rain, and then Neville Mills. So thank you.
Thank you. As I understood yesterday in the site visit, the applicants they own the pub and they'll own this site, but the pub is currently under a tenancy, so different people are actually running that. So I can understand that separation because the owners are, in charge of both of them really. So I'm not feeling uncomfortable with that, even though it's come in late. In terms of the view to the hills, I am a very keen walker. I do walk those hills, and I do see look upon the ward quite frequently. You can definitely not see this site, and once these are in place, they'll be clad with timber and they'll be invisible really, and there are so many trees on the site that you cannot see the hills at all. In fact, I thought that was a shame you couldn't, but you can't. So I just wanted to clarify that as the ward member who knows this area very well.
Thank you, Councillor Wilde. Okay, Councillor Rain, I think you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Well, actually, everything Councillor Wilde's just said was pretty well what I was going to say. I was on the site visit too yesterday. I'm not a great fan of these sort of caravans thing, but I was impressed yesterday with the arrangements for it. I do think, as has just been said, they will not be visible from the key points like the hills. It's very much a tree-surrounded little neighbourhood here. I think the issue of the relationship to the pub is understandable, as has been said again. The pub currently owns the site, but it's a tenancy, so they can't really interfere with it day-to-day place. But I do think it is the key to the future of that pub, and I think that's really important. We want to save these largely rural pubs, and I think this will make all the difference for what is otherwise a very lonely pub. I very rarely stop there. I've driven past it millions of times, but I've never felt the need to stop, and sadly, and that's what they don't get enough of, passing trade. But this will give them a market of their own. So I'm supportive. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rain. Councillor Mills.
Right, reading through the reports, it's very difficult to determine whether we've actually got a full rebuttal of the comments made in respect of the national landscape response.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. Would Anna or Kieran like to comment on the national landscape comments?
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the landscape and the assessment from officers that's set out in the reports, and we address key points, but it's not necessary to fully rebut or provide a rebuttal to consultee comments. Ultimately, they're there and they're taken into account, and they're reflected in terms of what the conclusions are reached and what the officers' weight attributed to each point. And the point, I suppose, in terms of the national landscape is absolutely very, very important and should be high on the agenda and protected. But there is that balance in terms of balancing the other key factors. And I think there's some, in this case, we've got the landscape comments, but we've also got the economic benefits that we've mentioned. We've got other benefits that are set out. So it's pulling those together really. And I think overall the committee report does that. and you can kind of you yourselves as members will also weigh up those factors and whether you agree with those conclusions or not. And I appreciate I'm hearing some of you do and some of you don't, but that's the nature of planning. But appreciate the point. Thank you.
Sorry, before I come to Councillor Bennett, because I know you want to come back in, Councillor Bennett, I just think on that point, because it has been raised a number of times, would you, Kieran, like to say a couple of words about items 7 and 8, the landscape ecological management plan and the construction environmental management plan, which are with the conditions outlined there, because I think that addresses this point specifically. And then Councillor Bennett, I'll come to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so quite rightly, as the Chair points out, the conditions, there's some strong drafted conditions in terms of requirements for submissions in terms of ecological landscaping, ecological management plans, which is condition 8. You've mentioned condition 7 as well in terms of the construction environmental management plan as well. So in terms of biodiversity and landscape, there's biodiversity gain plans required. There's details of boundary treatments. There's a landscaping scheme that's required to be submitted. There's also, I mentioned, I think it's condition 20, the materials of the lodges as well, which is obviously crucial to get right. I think in terms of sort of recessive colours and the impacts that has is really important in this location as well. So sort of taking all those elements together, that's where we've got to in terms of a point where we believe that it's acceptable in landscape terms. There will be an impact, undoubtedly. I think there is, as we've heard, there is some level of existing screening on the site, but also adjacent to the site, which does give an element of enclosure to this. It's tucked towards the back of the site, and there would be landscaping in front. It's also currently used for sort of more seasonal pitches, I suppose. So there is an actual use that does expand into this site, so it's not unused in that sense. But I appreciate that's temporary and seasonal, like I say. So this is more permanent. But then the flip side of that is the benefits that a permanent use of this site would have in connection to the pub. So it's a difficult balancing act to appreciate, but that's really where we've kind of got to. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bennett, I think, wanted to come in. Councillor Mills, and then I'll come to you, and then I think Councillor Gallagher would like to come in. Thank you.
The problem of the separation between these units and the pub means that you can't guarantee any of that. It's as simple as that. You do not know what the future is going to do with this. In terms of the National Landscape Authority putting in their objection, we keep on ignoring what they say. We don't give it anywhere near as much weight as it should do. The whole point about Malvern, the Malvern Hills, is they're supposed to be a protected landscape, and that should come first. And I just do not understand how people can sit here and think that that is not as important as anything else. I didn't even get a reply to my points about that until somebody else asked again. And I think we really do need to start taking this a lot more seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mills.
They are marketed as holiday lodges. What's the danger they're going to become permanent residents? Starting, for example, with holiday lodges becoming I've forgotten the term now.
I think we know the point you're trying to make, Councillor Mills, that they become more permanent, and that's your fear. Would you like to address that, either Anna or Kieran?
I mean, it's just coming back to the point Kieran made previously. We can only do what we would do usually in this sort of situation. You put conditions on that say it shall be holiday use only, and that they shall keep a register, and then it's for for us to be able to monitor that going forward. But it's a standard approach accepted by inspectors, and we can't assume that things are going to not be what they're proposed to be.
Thank you. I think we have dealt with that point actually a couple of times now. So, Councillor Gallagher, would you like to come in at this point as the one of the ward councillors? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you, members, for all the discussion, because I'm still a bit doubtful in my own head as to how I really feel about it. And having analysed it and listened to people's comments, I think that the economic benefits for going ahead with this is quite a sound argument and a good benefit, albeit I am still concerned about the ability to separate that out from the pub. It would be good to keep that as an entity. But given that, there is an economic benefit attached to it. The biodiversity thing, I think, is something for the future, which did concern me a little bit. And on that basis, I'm quite happy to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation for this.
Very much, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor McVeigh.
Sorry, just before you seek a seconder, I had been trying to get your attention to speak, but other people are popping up. I don't know how you can miss me in bright orange, but there you go. A lot of the points have already been raised, so I wasn't sure whether we were clear on the tenure of them, to be honest with you. And as you know, if it's a park home site, then the people that live in those park homes have rights, and there's a fit and proper persons test for the person running the site, etc. So it's very different things. So you're saying now that we are sure that it's holiday let, and that will be short-term use. There's no danger of a 10 out of 12-month occupancy, for example. The second point, I note the Woodland Trust's comments about the loss of the veteran tree habitat, and I think Chris is recommending that a condition is put in place, or is it already in place, and is that sufficient? So if what's in place isn't sufficient to protect those veteran trees, then please can we make sure that there is something in there, as Chris suggests, to protect them? I'm sure I read that there was. If I've got that wrong, I apologise. And then the final point, really, obviously people are going to be travelling by car to the lodges. Is this beyond us, or can we put a condition in around EV charging points being available so that at least people can travel in a more sustainable way, perhaps? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor McVeigh. I'm just conscious that we are also looking for a seconder for the motion. So before we address that, I've got Councillor Wilde, and thank you very much, Councillor Victory. Thank you very much. So we have a proposer and a seconder, and
point of order, please, Chair. I just need to be clear what we're actually voting on and which conditions are going to apply. Will the units be linked to the pub, and are we going to accept a new condition of no tents, caravans or camper vans? And again, Councillor McVeigh's raised a very good point about EV chargers. So could we be clear on those before we vote, please?
Yeah, thank you. We've got three things: the tie, the not having excessive tents, and
no tents, camper vans, caravans.
No additional. I mean, because it is still a camping site, as I understand it, with tents and caravans.
Replace that.
Oh, right. Okay. So, the tents and camper vans, the tie, and the EV charging, which Councillor McVeigh mentioned, and Councillor McVeigh also, I think, is looking for an answer to the point about the tenancy but I think we've probably dealt with that. But anyway, I shall certainly come back to our officers on those, both exactly what we're voting for and Councillor McVeigh's point about the lets.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll take Councillor McVeigh's points first, just to clarify, and then go into what I think, what could be a motion, but we might have to just clarify with those who've put those forward. But in terms of the sort of tenancy, it would be holiday use, but there is fact and degree about how long that is, and it's always a matter of difficulty. As planning officers, we used to nail that down much more than it currently is, but that's been deemed unlawful. So you have to, there's case law on it. So you can't specifically say you can't stay in there more than 14 days or 7 days. It's a matter of judging that. What we've put on is what we're able to, as much as possible, and we sort of have to accept that deems them to be holiday use, because that's, in planning terms, is what's deemed required and necessary. I think in terms of the point on the habitat loss, I think that may have just been on the other agenda bit, but I might be incorrect. But
page 83 in the report, and then previously the Woodland Trust comments. Then
know-
Chris has made a response.
So I know Chris is comfortable with the submission, aren't you? If that's right, did you? In terms
Yeah,
of,
there's a tree protection plan and our arboricultural method statement associated with this application. There are no veteran trees on this particular site, and I'm happy with the contents of the tree documents.
Thank you. Yeah, and in terms of the EV charging point, which we'll pick up, there's no reason why we can't include a condition in relation to that, given that that's what we would normally do in new developments. I just need to check. I was just trying to check the wording to ensure that we can apply it to this type of this size of development. So I probably need to take that away and check that we have a policy hook to do that, and if we do, we would include it. So if those who proposed and seconded agreed, I think what the motion would be to delegate to the Director of Planning and Infrastructure to include a condition on EV subject to it meeting the policy thresholds. So I just need to double check that. I don't think that the tie is something that's included in the proposal, because I think it was accepted that ultimately it's unfortunate and it would be preferable, but it's not required. And in terms of the tents, campers and other paraphernalia associated with extending beyond with the lodges that are being proposed, we could tighten up that condition, which thank you, that condition which already limits the number of lodges that are allowed, but it also explicitly excludes other things as well. So therefore we're sort of making sure that the uses that we're going to see are limited to what we're approving today.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. So to be clear, we're voting on this without a condition of a tie. Is that correct? Okay. All right. I don't think I'll be able to support the motion then. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gallagher, as the proposer, are you happy with that motion?
Yeah, just I'm happy with the delegated authority on the EVs. The question I've got is on the, I think you're talking about tents and caravans, is to put some sort of limitation. Is that a delegated authority in the same fashion?
Through the chair, sorry. Yeah, that would be. Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified that. So that'd be delegated just to tighten all that wording. Happy to do that in accordance with, in consultation with the local ward members, if that's helpful, just to make sure we nail that down. But it would be to amend that. I can't remember the condition number, but the one that relates to limiting the number of units to 6. It would also expand the wording to that to limit it to no tents, no camper vans. Ultimately to tighten that up as well. So if you're happy with that, we can say.
Yeah, I'm also happy with that, both of those.
Do we need, just turning to Rachel, do we need a motion to be read out to everybody for vote ahead of voting?
So the motion is to approve in accordance with officer recommendation, including the recommendations set out in the update report and additional conditions which have been outlined by Kieran and accepted by members. Is that correct? So all those in favour of approval, please raise your voting cards. Seven in favour. All those against? 6 against. Any abstentions?
I forgot to vote. Sorry. I think no, it's all right. Do I abstain?
You can abstain.
Yes, I'll abstain.
The motion is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you to members. Okay, we shall move on to the application in the Barnards Green Ward at the Malvern Social Education Centre, 41 Geraldine Road, Malvern. And I think I hand over to our officer, Anna, to present on this case first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for that. Right. This is a full application for a residential development of 16 dwellings on the site of the former Touchstone Day Centre on Geraldine Road in the locality of Barnards Green ward of Malvern. If I could just first actually draw your attention to the update sheet. It includes the recommendation of a further 3 conditions which were not included within the officer's report. A late comment has been received from the Highways Authority today, and as per their recommendation, an additional condition for tactile paving is suggested, and the detail of their comment is set out on the update sheet. Other conditions follow on from the site visit discussions yesterday. First being a removal of permitted development rights of certain dwellings in order to protect neighbour amenity. So those would be the northernmost properties and the 2 bungalows along the eastern boundary. And also for the inclusion of EV charging points to promote more sustainable forms of travel. I'm not sure that that entirely meets the requirement, so it hasn't been recommended by Highways, but if members feel that that's an important part of the scheme to promote sustainable forms of travel and reduce pollution, I think there is policies that we could hook onto that, and I've made a recommendation of a wording for a condition. You'll also note within the update sheet a further third-party comment which has been submitted in relation to the tree survey and assessment of the trees on and off the site. It's your officer's view, having consulted informally again with our tree and landscape officer, that the trees have been correctly identified and surveyed, and that the proposed layout, tree protection measures and planning conditions will ensure their protection and retention to a satisfactory level. So turning to the application site and the application details, the aerial photograph and location plan are shown here and identify the site, which is surrounded on all sides by residential properties. The existing building is a single-storey structure covering a substantial footprint with a parking area to the south and some green space to the north and east. The existing building is empty and has been redundant for a number of years. There are a number of TPO trees within and around the site, and these have been surveyed and carefully considered in the course of the application. The proposed site plan sets out the layout of the development with a number of detached units forming the frontage, and then 3 cul-de-sacs going into the site, with dwellings proposed to the north, east and south. At the north is a line of 4 dwellings in the form of 2 pairs of semi-detached properties. The existing line of protected trees on the eastern edge is to be retained and forms part of the green infrastructure proposed to the site. In the southern end, there's the 2 easternmost properties are the bungalows, the single-storey dwellings proposed, and then you can see in the southwest corner the Suds Pond. A detailed landscaping scheme has been presented with the application. As you can see from the dark green areas, the majority of this is retaining as much as possible the existing trees on the site, and then making some opportunities for new planting in and around the proposed dwellings. New head tree and hedgerow plantings proposed along the site frontage and along the new streets to be created, trying to reflect the sort of verdant nature of the area. The proposed house types provide a fairly cohesive approach with good amounts of variation to provide some interest in the street scene. The semi-detached properties have been designed to reflect the sort of larger detached properties, so that you get that similarity and the good quality of design. The single-storey dwellings have a true single-storey height of 5.6 metres, and a condition, as I said earlier, is recommended on the update sheet to ensure no roof or other extensions to these bungalows and the northernmost dwellings, as they all have a close relationship with neighbouring properties. Some variation in materials is proposed, with 2 different types of brick, render, and roofs would be the slate grey or red in colour, but the full details would need to be agreed through a condition. These are the proposed garage types. You can see they're fairly simple functional buildings which would be subordinate to the main dwellings and in keeping with the design and materials. The applicant has provided a street scene visual of the frontage to show how it will appear. There have been a number of concerns raised throughout the course of the application regarding the lack of opportunity for frontage planting, and a number of amendments have been made to the layout throughout the course of the application to maximise this opportunity as far as possible. Whilst substantial new tree planting to the frontage will not be possible due to the space restrictions, the existing virgin hedgerow on the opposite side of the road, which you can see within this visual, is mature and well established and will be unaffected by the development. So this, in conjunction with the hedge and shrub planting to the front of the new houses, should provide for a positive green aspect. And as highlighted previously, the focus in this scheme has been more about retaining the existing important trees within the site and ensuring their protection, which has led to the position of the buildings closer to the Geraldine Road frontage. Turning to the photographs, these photographs provide some views of the building within the site and the car park to the south. In the bottom corner, you can see the view from the car park towards the properties to the east off Worston Close, and then the other view looking towards the hills, looking out from the car park in the opposite direction. You can see on the top right photograph one of the trees of particular concern in the recent correspondence from the third party, which is a tree at 39 Geraldine Close, which is a protected oak tree. And in the further views about this, around and about the site, you can see the other trees in and around, and the neighbouring land and properties. And finally, just some views of existing architecture, other properties within the locality. So your officer's recommendation of this application is approval subject to conditions, including those additions within the update sheet and the completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure the necessary obligations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Anna. Now we do have some public participation on this item, and so I'd like to ask Alistair McGregor to speak. I don't know if Alistair McGregor is here. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. You have 3 minutes, Mr. McGregor. All right, thank you.
I'm speaking on behalf of 84 neighbours of this development, not, as is suggested in the officer's report, only 53, which is the number of written representations received by the planning officers, but a number of those representations have been written on behalf of 84 people, just as I speak on their behalf, and many of them are here tonight. I begin. You will have read the document that we circulated dealing with significant errors and omissions in this application. Specifically, we're talking about 2 trees, one on the site and one immediately adjacent to it, which are veteran trees and enjoy, as you know, special protection under planning law. There's a further tree, that's one that is a protected TPO'd oak, which is also registered by the Woodland Trust as a notable tree. There's going to be building work done, houses built over what should be the root protection areas of the 2 veteran trees, and a new sewer and gullies are going to be dug through the root protection area of the notable oak. At 11:40 this morning, I received a copy of an officer comment to this effect, that there is no deficiency or unacceptability in relation to the information provided about the trees in the application. Let's deal with that. It's clearly deficient, isn't it, that not a single mention was made in any of the documents submitted by the developer or in any of the documents in your officer's report that identified 2 veteran registered trees on and near the site. The next point that is made by the officers is that the trees have been correctly surveyed. Manifestly, that's wrong too, because if they'd been correctly surveyed, the veteran trees would have been identified. They weren't. Moreover, the plans that are there to protect the trees, we are told, have been properly drawn. They haven't. The surveyor who surveyed the trees misidentified the correct RPA area for the one and only tree that he surveyed of the 3 trees we're dealing with. So there's no survey at all in relation to 2 of those trees. The plan based on his survey to protect the trees is similarly therefore flawed.
Excuse me, sorry, Mr. McGregor, that's 3 minutes. I'm afraid you'll have to wrap up now. Thank you very much.
Well, I just want to make this one point.
Mr. McGregor, that's your time. You have 3 minutes, and I'm afraid that's all that is allowed. So I'd like to call the next our agent, the applicant's agent, David Onions from Pegasus Group, who has 3 minutes similarly. Thank you.
Thank you. This application has been prepared following a dismissed appeal for an earlier higher density proposal on this site. The applicant took on board the comments raised by the planning inspector, as well as representations received from residents, and has now created a scheme with the highest quality design which addressed the concerns that were previously raised. The quantum of development has been reduced to 16 dwellings, with the proposed density decreased by around half from the initial submission of the refused application. It now closely follows the density and surrounding grain of the existing development. High quality detached and semi-detached dwellings, including bungalows, set away from the eastern boundary with western close are proposed. These fully comply with the NDSS standards. We've utilised cul-de-sacs to ensure traffic speeds are low and to make an efficient use of the site in accordance with national policy. The proposal is of a verdant character with wide plots, large gardens, discrete side parking and soft landscaping. The scheme is compatible with the relatively spacious and green character of the locality, and overall it provides a high quality and attractive layout which harmonises with and contributes to local character. The proposal will provide ecological enhancements and a resulting biodiversity net gain. Members will be aware that there is acute and pressing need for further housing within Malvern, with the council lacking a 5-year housing land supply. In line with the requirements of the NPPF, this means that planning permission must be granted unless any adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. In this case, there are no adverse impacts, which would outweigh the highly significant benefits of redeveloping a vacant brownfield site in a sustainable location within Malvern. The scheme will deliver developer contributions, providing for funding for public open space, for cycling, for pedestrian connectivity, for community transport and the NHS. The only comments you've heard from neighbours relates to trees. We've worked hard with the council to resolve the issue of trees. The council's arboriculturist is here tonight, no doubt will be able to speak on that point, but the comments are reflected in the report. We are absolutely confident that on the issue of trees, we have followed correct procedure and that the trees on the site and adjacent to the site will be satisfactorily protected during development. Overall, this is a high quality scheme which represents sustainable development, providing economic, social and environmental benefits. It has addressed the previous concerns raised in the appeal. It will deliver housing which will contribute to Malvern's 5-year housing land supply, as well as its target to construct 40% of dwellings on brownfield land.
Thank you, Mr. Onions. That is your 3 minutes. Thank you very much indeed. Right. I'd like to come to the ward member who's here this evening, Councillor Victory. Would you like to make some comments on the application?
Thank you, Chairman. The application is one that my colleague Mark and I have resisted for nearly 2 years now. And we have been successful in getting a much better proposal. The density is reduced from 28 to 16. There is an agreement with regards to the bee orchids, which I understand will have to be transplanted within the site. On the point of the trees, we had a site visit yesterday, and it was explained to us that the veteran trees would have normal root protection. It's only the specific veteran oaks which will have extended protection, one of which is already effectively protected from encroachment by the existing highway. So all in all, I don't feel that we have sufficient grounds to refuse this application. The only thing that I am not happy about is that in reducing from 28 to 16, we've lost any element of affordable housing, and I would feel much more comfortable if there was some provision for that, say in the bungalow area. But I also have a screed which Mark has written and asked me to present with your permission. He writes, without prejudice, I've prepared some comments regarding the housing development at the Touchstone Centre. Unfortunately, due to a long-standing commitment, I'm away this week and won't be able to attend. He would like to thank Anna and the various officers and planning team members for preparing the paper and for their constructive engagement and discussions over the last 6 months, and also with the residents who he has met several times during this period. He called the application to the planning committee because he wanted to allow residents to express their views. Given the location and brownfield status, I support the principle of sustainable housing development at the site. The application is an improvement on the previous, which was subject to examination. He goes on to say various things which I've already said. The inspector's concerns about harmful overdevelopment to the site to the detriment of the character of the local area. He echoes my concern about no affordable housing. Yes, sorry, I just must read down a bit. To have proper dialogue would have been helpful, he said. Whilst the leaflet was distributed to local residents, it effectively just asked for written comments, and a constructive dialogue would have resolved several issues. and he wanted to flag that local residents are rightly concerned about the plight of the nationally recognised urban trees, worried about the protection of several oaks that border the property and the impact of the development, including ancient oak tree behind 39 Geraldine Road, whose roots could be impacted by drainage and other installations. If permissions granted, I would ask the committee to consider that any proposed mitigation measures are closely monitored during these works to ensure that no roots are impacted when digging commences. Residents have also expressed concerns for the protection of trees T2, a veteran tree, and TPO'd veteran tree in Quantock Grange that borders the site, and to urge any mitigation options that would allay their concerns. He would like to see planting of frontage trees as was recommended, but realises that the space is not sufficient. It would also help to achieve on-site biodiversity net gain, and the initial biodiversity reports did not initially pick up the presence of nationally rare and protected bee orchids, which also impacts BNG calculations. While the preference should be on on-site BNG, biodiversity net gain, it would be good to clarify how off-site net gain will be assured. And there he ends. And I reserve my right to come back at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Victory, for that, and Councillor Driscoll's input, very much appreciated in his absence. I'd just like to come to the officers, because I thought maybe, given that we do have Chris Lewis-Farley with us today, that it might be helpful to hear your comments, Chris, on the site, and in particular the TPO and protected trees. Thank you.
I've been looking at this site for quite a few years. Various planning applications, various iterations. The tree preservation order that covers the trees on the majority of the trees on the site was made in direct response to an earlier application, which didn't pay sufficient heed to the trees of value on the site. This latest iteration, I feel, does. You'll remember from your recent training that there are limitations as to what trees can be protected by tree preservation order and what can't. One of the things that excludes trees, from being protected by tree preservation order is their a tree in poor state of health. Now, this is where this is the rub of the matter. There's one tree on the site which has been attributed veteran status by the Woodland Trust. In my professional opinion, it's a borderline designation. Its veteran status didn't attribute any extra legal protection. Indeed, if the landowners or the future landowners wish to remove the tree, then they could. And in some perspectives, it would be justifiable to do so. I'm not saying it would be desirable to do so, but it would be justifiable to do so. The veteran tree on the site is large. There's a lot of timber up there. It's 90% dead, and its future stability is going to be in question. I mean, whether it's stable at the moment is well, that would be a speculative opinion. The second veteran tree is one which is in the grounds of one of the gardens of Hastings Pool. Again, I would say it's a borderline case for attributing veteran status to it. Again, it is 90% dead. That tree is covered by a tree preservation order, but the tree preservation order was made when the tree was in good health. It has obviously declined massively since it was first protected. Now, even in relation to that tree, excuse me, being covered by tree preservation order, if the property owner wanted to remove that tree, even with the tree preservation order in place, then they could. It would be exempt from the need to apply because of its potential dangerous condition. Just to reiterate, this is not sort of putting aside the value of the trees in terms of their potential, their biodiversity value. Indeed, the layout has been the tree survey was changed to originally they were the two trees on site, not the veteran tree off site. The veteran tree on site and its neighbouring tree was proposed to be removed because of its poor state of health through negotiation with the applicants. That changes were made and the two trees were accommodated. It's been suggested that the on-site veteran tree and the off-site veteran tree should be either shown or indeed as in the tree that's off-site or attributed a larger root protection area because of its veteran status. Again, I say I sort of question its veteran status, but the tree is on its last legs and it's been attributed a generous root protection area. The nature of the tree protected fencing is going to be robust, and the area in which all of the trees that are retained and protected as part of the development, the layout and the tree protection plan has been designed in such a way so they can be robustly incorporated into the development, both during the construction process and post development. So I'm quite comfortable that the trees on the site and indeed the tree in the rear garden of Hastings Pool have been given sufficient level of consideration in the layout and the tree protection they're afforded. There was a bit of a confusion between the tree which is in the garden of 39 Geraldine Road and whether it's has veteran status or not. It does not, and it may or may not have been recognised as a notable tree on the Woodland Trust website. I'm not certain about that. That tree has, following concerns raised by residents about the possibility of damage during the course of the construction works, to try and allay the concerns of the neighbouring residents. That tree has been recently TPO'd in its own right. So there's 3 TPOs going on basically. There's the pre-existing one, which was Hastings Pool. There's the one which was made a few years ago on the site itself, and there's the one on the tree on the opposite side of Geraldine Road in the rear garden of 39 Geraldine Road. Concerns have been raised about it not being included in the tree survey. I can understand that. That doesn't mean to say that it's the threat that is the possible threat to it has been discounted in the consideration of the application. It hasn't been ignored. Your officers are fully aware of the presence of the tree. When the term root protection area is a mathematical calculation based on the stem diameter of the tree. which it is true, if you drew a circle of the appropriate size, the root protection area of the tree would fall across the access road. And if you looked at it sort of just in those terms, then the proposed drainage strategy would involve excavations within the root protection area of the tree. That is true. However, the British standard BS 5837 is not a the tree's root protection area. It is not. It needs to take into account the conditions of the site. Now, between this tree and the development site itself is a road built to highway standards, and it would have been acting over the years as to a greater or lesser degree, in my professional opinion, as a root barrier, limiting the spread of roots under the road. So, I mean, the tree hasn't been ignored. It's been taken full account of. Now, there was concerns raised about to make sure that the trees were the construction process proceeded in an appropriate fashion. It's my understanding that one of the conditions, well, there are several conditions of consent related to arboricultural matters. One is an arboricultural method statement in which digging methods can be specified and an appropriate approach to excavation of the road, a precautionary approach can be taken, and any roots encountered sort of protected during the course of construction. There's yeah, sure. In terms of the tree protection, we've got a standard one saying prior to development taking place, there's a meeting between myself, their appointed arboriculturalist, and those undertaking the construction. I'm not talking about those who are seeing the planning application through the process. I'm talking about the people who would physically be implementing the planning permission. And that is to join the dots to ensure that everybody who is going to be operating on the site knows the full parameters of the arboriculture method statement and the tree protection plan. As a further condition, to a belt and braces approach to ensure that once the tree protection is erected, that they let us know and that it's got a letter of compliance. Yeah, I think that's probably about it. I've talked a lot. I'm sure there are a million questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, I think over to opening up to members now for any comments and contributions. Councillor Wood.
Yes, thank you, Chris, for that full response. Just to add to that, I know that you're very concerned about any tree, but also that you will always keep your eye on trees. So I'm sure that during the process of the planning application and the development on site that you'll be watching it like a hawk. So that gives me, you know, some sort of peace really about the trees.
Just a quick direct response. I'm sure it won't just be me who's watching the site like a hawk.
Councillor Bennett.
SWDP 15 says any site over 15 should have 30% housing. Is there any affordable housing on this left?
Anna or Kieran, would you like to just explain about the situation on the affordable housing?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. But it's a very good question. There isn't any affordable housing proposed. The reason being it's exempt from affordable housing because it's relying on vacant building credits, which is a national policy, which essentially is to incentivise reuse of brownfield sites. So there isn't a policy requirement essentially as a result. So it is policy compliant. They benefit from that exemption. We've assessed that on that basis, and that is an accepted approach. And the previous scheme, which had higher numbers overall, also benefited from vacant credits, but because they were higher numbers, they still had. It didn't cover all the area. So essentially, if the floor area that's being demolished is equal or greater than what it's being built, it's exempt as a brownfield site, and that's what the case is here. Previously on the appeal scheme that was dismissed at appeal, it would have provided more than was being demolished, so there was an ability to secure affordable housing on that. And I think actually one of the ones did actually propose an affordable housing scheme, but in any case they're exempt from building credits.
Councillor Bennett.
Can I just suggest then that the new SWDPR takes all of that into consideration with the new totals, because obviously that's going to make a mockery of what people would expect.
Chair, if I can just, it's absolutely understandable. It's national policy that doesn't apply to. It's on brownfield sites generally, so it doesn't happen that often in terms of brownfield development. So I think it's unusual, but it is about viability of sites, because otherwise we may find that it wouldn't be viable. This site itself, for 16 dwellings, to demolish the buildings on there probably wouldn't stack up in viability terms. Well, and it's been demonstrated it wouldn't stack up. So it's really to enable that, but it doesn't diminish the importance of affordable housing. It's just that balance, and that's what national policy supports in this instance. But I appreciate the point.
Any other comments? I'm looking around the room, and oh, Councillor McVeigh, I've spotted you.
No, thank you. Yes, thanks, Chair. I was really pleased to see the email from the resident featured in the updates pack, actually, because it's important for us to all to have had the opportunity to see that. But having had the email earlier in the week, I did contact Chris for some clarification around the protection and recognition of these trees, and have been satisfied with his response received by email and during tonight's meeting. I think no one wants to see a derelict site here. That's true. And I think this is certainly a better proposal than the one that came before us last time. It's a shame there aren't any one-bed units, although I appreciate from a developer perspective that might not be the most lucrative thing to put on the market. But I do think that there is a need for smaller units in central Malvern. I agree about the affordable housing, but we are where we are with that. That's NPPF, so we can't really do anything about that. So I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to do. I'm hoping other people will speak to help me make my mind up as well. But I really appreciate the responses from officers and actually the engagement with members of the public as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments, and I'm sure we all echo that thought, that we've taken very seriously the comments made by the public, the representations that have been made, and the emails that we have received. So I'd like to thank members of the public for their engagement, but also to thank Chris Lewis-Farley for his engagement on this issue, and also a very fulsome response, not only this evening, but throughout the dialogue that's taken place on this particular application. Just looking around, any other, yeah, Councillor Allen, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a difficult one, isn't it? Can I thank the officers for their report and also for the site visit, which I thought was very informative. I love trees, but we have some problems, don't we? I think we have to listen to what Chris has said and accept it. He's the tree expert, we're not. He's the man with the qualifications. I certainly haven't. And we have a problem. We haven't got a 5-year land supply. We keep turning things down, and we've got ourselves into the point that we leave ourselves very wide open to any planning inspector's appeal, which is very worrying. And then we have the problem. This is a brownfield site. Now, a couple of months ago, Upton and Holly Green, we had virgin farmland passed, but for housing. And, you know, that was far bigger than this, and the people of Upton and Holly Green are going to have to suffer for that. And if you look in places such as Kemsey and Rushwick, with the thousands of homes that have come in, I'm afraid 16 is very small fry at the end of the day. I think it's a good laid out scheme. It's infill, and we should be building on brownfield sites. It's a shame the building couldn't have been saved and repurposed, and that would have been the best option. But the county council's got itself in so much debt, it's selling as much as it can, as fast as it can. Well, I won't get political about that. So I'll be interested to hear any other members' views. At the moment, unfortunately, I am leaning to supporting this application. I wish I didn't have to. but I can see the point that if this goes to a planning inspector, we turn it down. I have little doubt they will overturn our decision very, very quickly, and we will incur costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Does anybody else want to make a comment on this, or am I at the point of returning to our ward councillor? Thank you, Councillor Victory.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think we've heard all of the opinions that that are useful to consider. As we've said, we are where we are with the affordable housing, and the trees. I'm satisfied with our officer's opinion on that, and the route protection for the one on Geraldine Road. It's been there with the existing highway for many years, so I don't see any problem with that. We have managed to get the application down from 28 houses to 16, and as a result of all those considerations, I would move to propose acceptance of the development plan.
Can I just ask, is that acceptance with the conditions as attached in the application and the updates?
Yes, that's right. That's including the conditions which we have talked about and which the officers will deal with.
Very much. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Thank you very much, Councillor. I think we're probably ready to go to the vote on that, because there is no deviation or change from the existing conditions as in the application and the update. So all in favour, would you like to raise? Oh, sorry, excuse me, Rachel. Would you?
Yeah. So updates and a Section 106 agreement to secure the planning obligations. All those in favour, please raise your cards. 10. That's 10 in favour. All those against? That's 1 against. Any abstentions? 1 abstention. The motion is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much, Rachel. That brings us to the close of the meeting. I'd like to thank our officers for their contribution, and Anna for your presentation. And to everybody who participated this evening from the public, for those who spoke, and also to our members, thank you very much. And next meeting is 27th June, is it? 18th June. 18th June. Thank you. Thank you all very much.